My name is Nairi Kachatourian, and I am a senior at Lexington High School. I came here tonight to ask you to please sever ties between the town of Lexington and the Anti-Defamation League. I'm fortunate enough to live in a town and learn in a school that promotes tolerance and understanding. However, the ADL has betrayed the trust that our town had in it by refusing to properly recognize the Armenian genocide and by actively lobbying against Armenian genocide resolution in the United States Congress. In school and in my town, I learned that real tolerance is only possible when we do not discriminate against anyone. The ADL discriminates. If Lexington really is no place for hate, like I believe it is, then you cannot allow an organization that discriminates in its policies to sponsor an education program. I know better. Please, immediately sever ties with the ADL.
My name is Vicki Blyer. I'm a town meeting member. I'm a Jewish Lexingtonian. And I think the problem with the ADL is that they are a human rights advocacy organization, but they are also an international political lobbying group. And political lobbying makes strange bedfellows. I don't think we would support in this town an organization that did good works but was sponsored by another organization that denied the Jewish Holocaust. I don't think we would allow a group that denied the validity of gay marriage or gay couples to sponsor an otherwise good program in town. And I don't think we should continue the relationship with No Place for Hate. I think I would like to see the Selectmen ask No Place for Hate to give them a deadline to sever their relationship with ADL, and in that way hopefully pressure the ADL to get rid of Mr. Foxman, who I think is the problem. So I would like you to give them a deadline.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Helen Epstein. I agree with Laura Bogosian. I'm a child of Holocaust survivors as well. I'm the author of Children of the Holocaust, Conversations with Sons and Daughters of Survivors. So I know how a lot of you sitting here feel. For me, the situation boils down to what Elie Wiesel did say, a situation of a double killing. First, there's the genocide, then there's the denial of the genocide. I think that I'm terribly ashamed of Foxman for not apologizing to the heirs of the genocide rather than to the Turkish government. And I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to you as a Jew. And I recommend to the Selectmen that you sever ties with the ADL.
My name is Sose Bajekian. I'm also a senior at Lexington High School. The ADL has for too long refused to call the systematic extermination and deportation of Armenians from their ancestral lands by its proper name, genocide. I've learned quite a bit about genocide and the horrible effects it has in Lexington High School. I know that genocide is the worst hate crime possible, and I know that genocide denial is the first stage of genocide. The ADL, final stage of genocide. The ADL not only refused to acknowledge the Armenian genocide, but they also actively lobbied our own government to defeat formal recognition of the Armenian genocide. For this reason, I urge you to sever ties between Lexington and the ADL. How can the ADL possibly teach me about tolerance? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ani Dermenji. I sincerely hope the National ADL changes their position in regards to the Armenian genocide so we can once again join the program. But until then, Lexington cannot allow the ADL in our town. I hope you all make the right decision and sever ties now, sending a strong and clear message to the ADL that Lexington stands up for all human rights and stands up for all its citizens. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Howard Brick. I'm a resident of Lexington and a member of the ADL New England Regional Board. I come before you tonight not to at all quarrel with or question the anger about ADL National's refusal or failure to unambiguously characterize what happened to the Armenians as a genocide. And I'm proud of the fact that the ADL New England Regional Board has pushed and continues to push to clarify that policy. I do want to make clear, however, that there are two issues tied up with what the Armenian community wants. One is an unambiguous statement with respect to the genocide. The other, however, has to do with H.R. 106. And I would submit to you that if you as a body want to make clear that you require an unambiguous statement from the ADL with respect to the Armenian genocide, that's fine. However, the legislation raises a host of other very complex political, geopolitical, foreign policy issues. And just as, and if you read the legislation, you will see that in that it doesn't just call for the United States government to recognize the Armenian genocide. It goes beyond that and calls for United States foreign policy to be changed to reflect and provide for the punishment and retribution to those responsible for the genocide. And that, I would submit, raises a host of very complex issues that, frankly, it isn't even appropriate for ADL as a nonprofit organization, as a civil rights and human rights organization to wade into and take a position. I don't have the facts, and I don't know about these allegations regarding lobbying by the ADL with respect to the United States government. I do know, however, by law, that ADL would be imperiling its nonprofit status if it did so. So, frankly, I'm not sure what's there.
My name is Dikran Khaligian. I am a visiting professor of Armenian Genocide Studies at Clark University. I also happen to be a graduate of Lexington High School, class of '79. The key issue tonight, and an issue that's come up before a number of the towns as this No Place for Hate issue has come forward, is, well, why should towns be taking a position on legislation? We just heard that from the gentleman who's from the regional ADL. Or why should even the ADL be taking positions on legislation? The fact is, it's not necessary for this town to do that. That's not what anyone is asking, to take a position on the historical facts or a position on the legislation. What is being asked is that a severance from the ADL be made because it has to be a reversal of a prior position. When we hear that the ADL is not authorized to lobby on any, to be lobbying or taking a position in favor of legislation, it's rather absurd. I mean, Mr. Foxman not 6 months ago demanded that there be legislation in Congress, that the U.S. Congress demand of the UN that Iran and its president be condemned by the UN for denying the Jewish Holocaust, and appropriately so. So clearly positions are taken. But the reason why it is important that a severance be made at this time is because of the 15 years that Mr. Foxman and the national ADL leadership, unbeknownst to his own members, including the ones from New England, as they have told us themselves, unbeknownst to them, had a policy refusing to use the words Armenian genocide and actively lobbying against any and all legislation that uses the words Armenian genocide. That is an immoral position. That is an unethical position. And the reason why we Armenians and Jewish Americans and those who believe in universal rights have been going from town to town asking those towns to sever themselves from the ADL is to try to bring them back on the right side of this ethical issue. That as long as they have taken a position opposing, actively lobbying against, and continuing to the present day, I might note, just in the last 2 months, Mr. Foxman has made statements in the Boston Globe, the Los Angeles Times, the Jerusalem Post, all stating it is not appropriate for the U.S. Congress to be discussing the Armenian genocide, to be discussing this resolution. That's not lobbying. That's not making a clear statement of position to discourage the U.S. Congress from even discussing this issue. That is the policy that must be reversed. And with all deference, I mean, all of us who support human rights are very appreciative to the members of the New England ADL for the strong position they took, the fact they even were able to put it on the agenda of the national ADL to reverse this position was a courageous act. Unfortunately, it's not enough. As we've heard earlier from Mr. Porter, the ADL will not change that easily. Mr. Foxman will not change that easily. We cannot wait until November. A clear message must be made now, that until the ADL changes its policy clearly, until the ADL repudiates its prior policy, and the only way to do that is to come out in support of legislation. If you've opposed legislation and you don't come out and say, no, now we support it, there's always the nudge and the wink, and okay, we'll throw a few words out there. We'll throw a few words out there, but we can still lobby behind the scenes. That is why it is essential there be a clear message, a clear ethical message that the ADL is in favor of Armenian genocide legislation in Congress. Until it is ready to do so, until it is ready to take that ethical position, I cannot see, as someone who grew up in Lexington, as someone whose first job was talking about the defense of liberty as a tour guide in Lexington Green, to still have this town associated with the Anti-Defamation League. Thank you.
Please hold your applause.